The ambush Lieutenant Zara Novak pressed her back against the twisted metal of the crashed transport, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird. The Vorthik had come out of nowhere, their six-legged forms skittering across the rocky terrain of Kepler 442b with predatory grace. Their chittering filled the air, a sound like broken glass being crushed underfoot. "Marcus, we're completely surrounded," she whispered into her comb, watching the alien hunters close their circle. The creatures stood nearly 8 feet tall, their exoskeletons gleaming black in the planet's twin suns. Razor-sharp mandibles clicked as they communicated in their harsh, guttural language. Sergeant Marcus Kane sat beside her, calmly field-stripping his rifle despite their dire situation. His weathered face showed no trace of fear, only the focused concentration of a man who had seen too many battles to panic now. "Surrounded?" he said, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Zara, that's not a problem. That's perfect. Positioning?" She stared at him in disbelief. "Perfect positioning? Marcus, there are at least 20 of them. Our backup won't arrive for another 6 hours, and we've got maybe 30 rounds between us." Marcus finished reassembling his weapon with practiced efficiency. "Exactly. See, when the enemy surrounds you, they think they have the advantage. But what they don't realize is that now I know exactly where all of them are." He pulled out a small device from his tactical vest, its surface covered in blinking lights. "And more importantly, I can hit them from any direction without worrying about friendly fire." The Vorthik began their advance, moving in synchronized waves. Their hunting strategy was well documented. They would close the circle gradually, using their superior numbers to overwhelm their prey. It had worked flawlessly against every other species they had encountered, but they had never encountered Marcus Kane. "You see, Zara," Marcus continued, his voice steady as he calibrated the device, "most people think tactically. They see 20 enemies and think 20 problems. But I see 20 enemies and think 20 opportunities." He pressed a button, and the device began emitting a low, pulsing hum. "This little beauty is a sonic resonator, designed to exploit the frequency weaknesses in Vorthik exoskeletons." The creatures hesitated, their sensitive hearing picking up the strange sound. Some began backing away, but their pack instincts kept them in formation. "When I was a kid back on Earth," Marcus said, standing up and shouldering his rifle, "my grandfather taught me about wolf hunting. He said the secret wasn't to run from the pack. The secret was to make them come to you on your terms." He looked at Zara, his eyes gleaming with confidence. "And right now, these bugs are playing by my rules." The sonic resonator reached full power, and the first Vorthik began to convulse as the frequency disrupted their nervous systems. The human factor the Vorthik's formation began to collapse as the sonic resonator wreaked havoc on their coordination. 3 of the creatures fell to their knees, their exoskeletons cracking under the pressure of the targeted frequency. But the others adapted quickly, just as Marcus had expected they would. "Clever bugs," he muttered, watching as the remaining Vorthik split into smaller groups, some covering their auditory organs, while others began flanking maneuvers. "They're learning. That's good. Makes this more interesting." Zara watched in amazement, as Marcus seemed to anticipate every move the aliens made. "How did you know they would do that?" "Because I've been studying them for 3 years," Marcus replied, pulling out a handful of small spheres from his vest. "Ever since they wiped out the colony on Proxima 7, the Vorthik think they're the apex predators of this galaxy, but they've never faced a species that studies its enemies." He rolled one of the spheres toward the approaching group. "They hunt by instinct. We hunt by intelligence." The sphere exploded in a burst of brilliant light, temporarily blinding the nearest Vorthik. Marcus was already moving, using the confusion to reposition behind a boulder that gave him a clear line of sight to the largest group. "The thing about humans," he said, taking careful aim, is that we don't just adapt to our environment. We adapt our environment to us. His first shot took down the pack leader, a massive vorthic with scars covering its carapace. The creature's death cry echoed across the rocky plain, causing the others to falter. Zara found herself caught up in Marcus's confidence. She checked her sidearm and moved to a flanking position, following his lead. "What's the plan?" "Simple," Marcus said, lobbing another sphere toward a group trying to circle around them. This one released a thick, choking smoke that sent the aliens into confused retreat. "We make them think like us instead of thinking like them. Humans are ambush predators too, Zara. We just use our brains instead of our claws." The battle turned into a deadly game of chess, with Marcus calling out positions and Zara following his directions. They moved through the terrain like dancers, using every rock, every shadow, every advantage the landscape offered. The vorthic, despite their numbers, found themselves constantly outmaneuvered. "You see," Marcus said, dropping 2 more aliens with precise shots. "They expected us to panic, to run, to fight like cornered animals. But we're not animals. We're humans. And humans don't just survive against impossible odds." He paused to reload, his movements fluid and unhurried despite the chaos around them. "We thrive on them." The vorthic circle was broken now, their hunting formations scattered across the battlefield. Several of their number lay motionless, while others nursed wounds from Marcus's perfectly placed shots. The survivors began to realize they were no longer the hunters. They had become the hunted. The turning tide, the remaining vorthic, regrouped near a cluster of crystalline formations, their chittering now carrying a different tone: fear. It was a sound no human had ever heard from the species before, and it sent a chill down Zara's spine. "They're scared," she whispered, watching the aliens huddle together like frightened children. Marcus nodded, his expression grim. "Good. Fear makes predators sloppy, but it also makes them desperate." He pulled out his last sonic device, this one larger and more complex than the resonator. "And desperate predators are the most dangerous kind." As if responding to his words, the largest surviving vorthic let out a bone-chilling howl that seemed to shake the very ground beneath their feet. The other aliens immediately began spreading out again, but this time their movements were erratic, unpredictable. "They're going into a blood frenzy," Marcus explained, his fingers dancing over the device's controls. "It's their last resort. They'll attack with everything they have. No strategy, no coordination, just pure, mindless aggression." Zara felt her earlier confidence waver. "That sounds worse than when they were organized." "In some ways, it is," Marcus admitted. "But frenzied enemies make a critical mistake. They stop thinking entirely. And thinking is what separates us from them." He activated the device, and a low, thrumming pulse began to emanate from it. "This is a neural disruptor. It won't kill them, but it will give us a few seconds of advantage." The vorthic charged as one, their previous tactical discipline completely abandoned. They came from all directions at once, a wave of chitinous death that would have overwhelmed any other species. But Marcus was ready. "Now!" he shouted, and the neural disruptor sent out a powerful pulse that caused every vorthic to stumble mid-charge. In that crucial moment of confusion, Marcus and Zara struck with surgical precision. Marcus's rifle spoke in measured bursts, each shot carefully placed to disable rather than kill. "We're not monsters," he called out over the chaos. "We're better than that. We prove our superiority by showing mercy when we can." But the vorthic weren't ready to accept defeat. The largest of them, a scarred veteran with one missing eye, broke through their defensive line and lunged directly at Zara. Its mandibles opened wide, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. Time seemed to slow as Zara raised her weapon, knowing she wouldn't be fast enough. The creature's claws were already reaching for her throat when Marcus appeared beside her, moving with impossible speed. He intercepted the alien's attack with his bare hands, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to match the creature's supernatural agility. "The thing about humans," Marcus grunted, wrestling with the massive alien, "is that we don't just use tools. We become them." His eyes flashed with an inner fire that Zara had never seen before. "We adapt. We overcome. We never give up." With a burst of strength that seemed to come from nowhere, Marcus threw the Vorthik across the clearing. The creature hit the ground hard and didn't get up. The remaining aliens looked around at their fallen comrades, then at the two humans who had defeated them. One by one, they began to retreat, their chittering now carrying a note of respect mixed with fear. The revelation, as the last of the Vorthik disappeared into the rocky badlands, Zara finally allowed herself to breathe. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline coursing through her system. She looked at Marcus, who was calmly checking his equipment as if nothing extraordinary had happened. "How?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "How did you know all of that would work?" Marcus smiled, but there was something different in his expression now. Something that spoke of secrets and hidden knowledge. "Because this isn't the first time I've faced the Vorthik, Zara, and it won't be the last." He sat down on a nearby rock and pulled out a small datapad, its screen showing star charts and tactical information that Zara had never seen before. 3 years ago, when they destroyed the colony on Proxima 7, I was there. I watched them slaughter 3,000 innocent people. I watched them hunt children for sport. Zara's blood ran cold. The official reports said there were no survivors. Officially, there weren't, Marcus replied, his voice hardening. But I survived, and I learned. I studied them, followed them, observed their tactics across 7 different worlds. I became an expert in their psychology, their biology, their weaknesses. He looked up at her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her take a step back. I became the one thing they fear more than anything else in this galaxy. What's that? A human who understands them better than they understand themselves. Marcus stood and began walking toward the crashed transport, his movements purposeful and determined. The Vorthik aren't just random raiders, Zara. They're scouts. They're testing our defenses, our capabilities, our resolve. And they're reporting back to something much larger. Zara followed him, her mind racing. What are you saying? I'm saying that this little encounter was just the beginning, Marcus replied, beginning to salvage equipment from the wreckage. The real war is coming, and humanity needs to be ready. We need to be more than just survivors. We need to be predators. He pulled out a long-range communicator and began adjusting its settings. I'm going to contact Command and tell them about a new initiative I've been developing. Something called the Terran Defense Protocol. It's based on everything I've learned about our enemies, and it's going to change the way we fight. The communicator crackled to life, and Marcus's voice took on an official tone. This is Sergeant Marcus Kane, requesting immediate priority channel to Admiral Rodriguez. Authorization code, Prometheus 77 Alpha. Zara watched as her understanding of the man beside her completely transformed. This wasn't just a skilled soldier. This was someone who had been preparing for a war that nobody else even knew was coming. Admiral, Marcus said when the connection was established, I'm sending you a full tactical report on Vorthik capabilities and weaknesses. But more importantly, I'm recommending immediate implementation of the Terran Defense Protocol. We need to stop thinking like prey and start thinking like predators. The future of humanity hung in the balance, and Zara realized she was witnessing the birth of something that would change everything. The birth of the Terran Empire 6 months after the encounter on Kepler 442b, the galaxy had changed. The Terran Defense Protocol had been implemented across all human colonies. and the results were nothing short of revolutionary. What had begun as a desperate defensive measure had evolved into something far more ambitious. Admiral Rodriguez stood in the command center of the newly constructed Terran defense station, watching as reports flooded in from across human space. "Marcus, your protocols have exceeded every expectation. Colony after colony is reporting successful defenses against Vorthic raids. But more than that, we're actually pushing them back." Marcus nodded, but his expression remained serious. "That was just phase 1, Admiral. Defense was never the end goal. It was preparation." He activated a holographic display showing the entire sector, with red markers indicating Vorthic activity and blue markers showing human colonies. The real war is about to begin. Zara, now promoted to captain and serving as Marcus's second-in-command, stepped forward. "Our intelligence networks have confirmed your predictions. The Vorthic aren't acting alone. They're part of something called the hegemony, a collection of species that have been systematically conquering this galaxy for over 1,000 years. And they've never encountered a species like us," Marcus added, his voice carrying a note of grim satisfaction. "Every other race they've faced has either submitted or been destroyed. But humans don't fit their paradigm. We're not just survivors. We're adapters. We're innovators. We're the one thing they never expected to face." The holographic display shifted, showing new data from the outer colonies. "The hegemony has sent a full battle fleet to deal with us," Admiral Rodriguez reported. 200 ships, representing 6 different species. They're calling it the final solution. Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Perfect. Let them come. While they've been relying on the same tactics for centuries, we've been evolving. We've been becoming something new." He gestured to the display, which now showed the disposition of human forces. "Every colony is now a fortress. Every ship is a weapon. Every human is a soldier. But more than that, we've learned to think like them while retaining what makes us human. We've become the perfect predator." The first reports came in 3 days later. The hegemony fleet had arrived at the edge of human space, expecting to find a cowering prey species ready for conquest. Instead, they found something that defied every model they had for galactic warfare. The humans didn't wait to be attacked. They struck first, using tactics that no other species had ever employed. Ships appeared out of nowhere, using technology that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Soldiers fought with a combination of high technology and primitive cunning that left their enemies bewildered and defeated. "The Vorthic are requesting parley," reported Captain Stevens from the communications station. "They're saying they want to negotiate terms of surrender." Marcus looked at the display showing the retreating hegemony forces. "Tell them that the Terran Empire doesn't negotiate with those who prey on the innocent. They have 2 choices: complete withdrawal from human space or complete destruction." Admiral Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "Terran Empire? Since when do we call ourselves an empire?" "Since we proved that humanity isn't just another species struggling to survive," Marcus replied. "We're the apex predators of this galaxy. And it's time we started acting like it." The final message from the hegemony fleet was simple: acknowledgement of human territorial claims and a promise of non-aggression. For the first time in galactic history, the conquerors had been conquered. As the celebrations began across human space, Zara found herself standing beside Marcus, watching the stars. "So what happens now?" she asked. Marcus smiled, and this time it was warm, human, hopeful. "Now we explore, we grow. We become the protectors of those who can't protect themselves. We become the empire that rules through strength, but governs through wisdom." The age of human dominance had begun.